So, that was Mendelssohn's Opus 67, number 4, Songs Without Words, also known as Spinning Song. I wanted to talk a little bit in today's video about troubleshooting pieces. So, as you can see, most of it's together, wasn't perfect, about 98% of the way there. But there's a couple little things that I'm trying to work on, and I wanted to shed some light on it today. So, what I find tricky about this piece, is I'm playing it, it's memorized, is that there's a lot of very similar sections that kind of diverge into 2 different sections, and I'll just talk about it for a quick second to show you. So in the opening figure of the piece, you have this now this happens, let's see, I think 3 times in the piece. The first time, it turns around and goes back to the original. But the other times that it happens are and I find those spots really tricky. So when I'm playing through the piece, I really have to pay close attention to when I'm playing there to make sure that I go to the right section. Another time that happens in the piece is there's these 2, there's this sequence that happens twice in the piece. I'll play it through it. And the second time it happens, it goes like this. And the first time after it goes to this G major figure. The second time it goes to this E major figure. What's tricky about it is that the way that I try and separate it in my mind is try and think of the harmony that it's going to. So they're both 4-measure phrases. And the 4th measure in the first time, it goes, so it's kind of playing this half diminished chord. And it's playing a D7 into this G figure. The second time it happens, goes to the 5 again, and then into that E major figure. Another figure that happens a couple times is this. So the first time it happens, it's a C major arpeggio into a second inversion arpeggio, and then into that thing. The second time it happens is same arpeggio, but this time it goes to a root C major arpeggio into another root C major arpeggio. And then it goes into that figure again, but with a different left-hand accompaniment. So that's what I find really tricky about playing this piece, is staying on track, because you're going through, it's a perpetual motion kind of piece, meaning there's no stopping or starting or anything like that. And you have to make sure that you're going to the right section. It's very easy to get confused. So I like to really focus in on those moments. And just to recap them, it's this. That happens, that's the first time it happens. The second time. And then the The third time it happens, it does that. Again, the other figure that's tricky, there's 3 spots that I want to review. And here I'll think about the harmony too. So it's C7 going to a F major chord, C sharp to half diminished, or C sharp diminished going to D minor. Then this kind of A minor half, diminished, or however you want to think about it. It's important to just think about the dominant going to the tonic there, the D7 to think about that. So the first time through, and then compared to the second time through, harmonies. But what's really tricky is this figure, this kind of, I think about it kind of like a G7. And then first time through, so the first time through it does this, the second time through it does, and that G7 to C, the second time through, happens in the second measure, and the first time through, it happens in the third measure of the phrase. So the other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is some of the dynamic issues that I'm trying to work on. So a couple times in the piece, you have this figure like, and this is marked forte. So it's like, and then it goes to a pianissimo. And this kind of thing gets very, in the listener's ear, it just becomes very, it kind of recedes into the background if there's not enough of a differentiation between the two. And what I find difficult is it's hard to play these fast 16th notes really quietly. So what I've been working on is staying very close to the key, trying to move in a little bit slower into the key, but really feeling my arm behind every motion. The other thing that makes it doubly hard is you have this on top of it, which kind of limits, it doesn't limit the right hand, but it certainly causes a bit of a hindrance. So and sometimes what happens to me is you get these kind of half-played notes or notes that don't fully sound because you're trying to, play it softly. And I'll take each hand separately, and I want to play this one a little bit more inside, so my right hand has more room. And I'm really trying to feel a down on each of these. And sometimes I'll just practice how softly I can play it. And still get both notes to sound. let's try it. Not bad. It happens another time in the piece. Here in this mark, it's forte, pianissimo. So again, I'm gonna try and just get these 16th notes really quiet. And I noticed that the 4 didn't really want to sound there. Feeling a little bit of rotation between 3 and 4 there. A little bit of shaping. Now here we're at forte, back to piano. Also, sometimes my left hand doesn't really feel fully settled there, and what I mean by that is sometimes the notes don't feel like they're the arm is fully behind them. And you can tell a little bit in the sound. Especially, and I think it's because I need, here it's a section with a lot of notes playing at the same time, and you have this constant bum 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 bum, and you need to bring out the melody. So I think in an attempt to bring out the melody, some of the left hand counterline isn't being fully realized. Crescendo, which I don't think I'm fully getting. That's better. That's better. Crescendo here, double forte, fortissimo. Anyway, so I wanted to talk a little bit about troubleshooting this piece, Mendelssohn Songs Without Words, Opus 67, number 4, spinning song. I'll be playing this piece more in the coming days, just doing some more troubleshooting, and then when we start a new piece, I'm going to do all of Opus 67 for you guys. So we still have number 2 to do, number 3. There's a whole bunch of really good ones in here. I love the one that goes like this. It's really, really beautiful, so that'll be a fun one to do, and we'll pick it up tomorrow.